So we have placed the cards here, side by side with how we would explain it in basic scenarios. Magic has basically 7 card types.
Okay.
We have the features, features. Also, what was that? The instants. Let's play sorcery, uh, lands. Of course, we need lands to produce our mana to cast our spells,
Mhm.
and the special features, planeswalkers. So also has different functions. And these last two types, artifacts and enchantments.
It's funny you should say artifacts.
Yeah,
Actually, in Yu-Gi-Oh, there's actually an entire archetype called artifacts.
artifacts. Yeah, they are also the same that of Magic. They are basically some decks that are built around those types and has also similar interactions. Okay, so we're going to start with the parts of the card. So basically, you need lands to play out the spells, right?
Okay.
So having these lands, so these are just the basic. Let's say these are the non-basic because they can produce uh, 2 colors. This is either black and green. And for example, you would have the this card. So you would need to add mana, 1 black and 1 generic, or any mana will do for this one. So that's basically 2 in total. So you need one of these land and another land to play out to be able to cast a spell.
So,
So
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's so basically it's kind of like casting spells
yes,
in a way.
so the game is basically a duel between 2 wizards, which you will use lands, your mana, to cast your spells to be able to defeat the other.
I
So that's
see.
basically it.
Interesting. So give or take, and of course I'm sure there's like types of how do I say this? Of course, there's types of. Term ganito na. Shit, dali lang.
The basic, ano,
Ang sa lands pala.
um, non-basics in basics. Sa beginning of basic lands are the 5. Hindi natin nila lang the full art. Those are the basic lands. Nakaproduce one of pwedeng white, blue, black, red, green.
I see.
So those are the basics.
But more or less like of course in terms of ano, whether you have full art or
Yeah,
type art doesn't really matter.
that's just the design and the frame. If you want to be more pimping out their decks, then you basically use those full arts, those alternate those foils. But the mana combination of the deck is basically composed of basics and non-basics. It's a just a good combination how you would come up with your mana, so you would be able to curve out perfectly. So for example, if you have this kind of deck wherein you would need blue, black, and red, so those are 3 kinds of colored mana you would need for the deck, so you would have a lot of example the non-basic lands that we would add to the deck to be able to produce these colors in this build. So how do you win? So basically attacking your opponent with this creature. So this is example. So this one on the left side is your ito lang sa flash up. The power. So this will be your attack, and your toughness is your life. Basically on the right side. So this one is 4 attack or 4 power and 3 toughness or 3 life. So in the basic introduction, you would players would start with in a regular duel would be 20 life. So whenever a player reaches 0 life, so basically he loses the game. But there are also other interactions which we will just discuss later on. Wherein you will win with not having them. Having them life to 0.
So basically,
Yeah.
there's like aside from the normal bringing people's life to 0,
Yeah.
there's also
Yeah.
victory conditions, something like
Yeah,
that.
there are cards that it will say that you will win the game, or you have opponent lose the game. Yeah.
So it's kind of like the in Yu-Gi-Oh. There's always a meme, of course, the Exodia thing. If you
Yeah.
have if you have 5 in your hand,
Yeah.
all 5 pieces, you automatically win, something like
Yeah.
that.
You can search out Coalition Victory. That's a very good example. How you would interact? You will just basically use instants and sorceries. Again, for the difference, only explaining, sorcery can only be done in your main phase.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically the parts of the turn. We'll have it in a later video.
Of course.
Instants can be done at any time if you have the mana, and opponents can also interact by casting their own instants, but that would also depend on how the stack would resolve if given the passing of priority in that. And last but not the least, we'll have also Planeswalkers.
Yes.
So these are just kind of our super friends that we have to aid us in battle. They have several loyalty abilities which we can use to gain us advantage and also to have some interaction against your opponent. So in this option also we have some alternate casting cost. As you can see here, you can pay with 2 life or of any mana, that is green or white, or you can pay 2 life to its mana cost, and then this would be its starting loyalty, that is for a Johnny. And activating this one, you would also, for example, you would add +1 loyalty, will use this ability, and then -3. That would also depend on the starting loyalty, so that means that you would need some dice to have as a reminder on how many loyalties left for your Planeswalker to be able to activate according to what its purpose, depending on the situation. But that's really still the option sa opponent mo if you would go with your life total or sa Planeswalker. Usually they would kill the Planeswalker because medyo masaba din ang attraction. You would may bronze na ito ginagawa. Like example, the next turn, may removal siya na effect ng loyalty niya. So most likely, patch yun sana isang player
Okay.
before sa ino. So that's basically giving you extra life totals. Extra life sa ino. So imbes na nakatawa na tasin, nakatawa sa iyo.
And if I recall from back in the day, no, like I think if I recall it, correct me if I'm wrong, lang, no. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like every time you activate something or like if your creature attacks you, parang I guess like i-shout out ko lang si Sir Zandro, no. Like
Sir Zandro.
Sir Zandro kag si JT Chua.
You would tap, yeah.
Yeah, you tap them
Yeah,
basically.
tap.
Kasi in Yu-Gi-Oh, we don't actually do that. Kumaga, if you're doing this, that means you're in defense mode. So, but we'll get to that eventually.
Okay. So basically, in attacking creatures, you need to tap them to be able to attack. Though there are some creatures though that has vigilance, wherein they would not need to tap to be able to attack. So that indicates though that top creatures cannot block. So if you would defend on your opponent's turn, they would not be able to block their opponent's creatures. So that basically going with indicating that they have attack or they are attacking when you tap those creatures. The same with activation of abilities. We have this example in Hollow Fight 10. We have this option to pay white and tap. And then another ability is, another cost is to untap a tap creature you control to be able to produce this effect. So that's, for example, you have pay 1, tap, you have the tap creature, for example. Pay 1 white, tap, you untap this one, then you will have this ability to create 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. So that's another effect. So there are also other options depending on how you would play out the abilities if you have the mana to do so, to do this one. So you'll notice your cost. In this is the example. So this is example to win a game. Accidentally, I had this card that was also alternate win condition. So if you would be able to activate this one, you would have 5 white mana, then tap, you untap 15 tap creatures to control. So that in certain scenarios, you would not really have 15 creatures on the board. So you have basically won that game, but in certain situations that you may have those 15 creatures that you have not yet won the game, so just basically use this ability so that you would be able to win the game. That's basically it.
However, like on a normal day, on a normal game, like how many creatures can you have like on your side of the board?
You can have as many as you can. That's you want the deck. So since the deck naman is starting with 60, so that would also depend on how the decomposition would look like. It's like if you want to have like lancing creatures, then basically you can have that kind of build, but also would depend on what strategy you would want.
And curious question, because in like in Yu-Gi-Oh we have like a minimum, how do I say this, a minimum card count per deck. So we
Yeah,
have a minimum of 40 cards per deck and a maximum of 60. So in Magic, does it like have like a
we only
60
have
minimum or?
minimum 60 for constructed. For limited, we have 40.
Ah,
You
okay.
can go above. There are decks also that has this win condition. We call that one as Battle of Wits. The Battle of Wits deck. The card would be at the beginning of your upkeep. If you have 200 or more cards in the level, you win the game. So that is basically an enchantment that would check. Initially, your deck would have a minimum of at least 200 or more, since you're basically that's really a weird kind of deck gameplay. But it's
Okay.
actually a deck that kind 200 cards. Basically, how it is.
Well, to be fair, no, like back in the day, like in the early days of unregistered, unbridled Yu-Gi-Oh, I should say. Well, I don't know if you've probably heard this story, but there was, kasi back in the day, there was a couple of incidents where back in the day, there was no, like, how do I say
Limit.
this? Maximum
Maximum
limit, yeah.
deck.
Maximum limit of cards per deck. So essentially, some people in Europe thought it was, I think it was Europe, yeah, thought it was funny. They had this big, two people had to carry like a 2,000 card deck. So, and they had to divide it into many, many things. So you can imagine the chaos.
That's it. Yeah. Just to win the game.
People actually probably wanted to rage quit because they didn't want to shuffle the deck every time.
That's basically the kinds of cards that we have in this Magic the Gathering, and yeah, that's the main win conditions is basically having your opponents have their life total going to zero.
Okay.